Right, hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today, I'm going to talk about something that's going to make a lot of people pissed off, man. But frankly, they have to hear it. Today, I'm going to talk about power chords and the myths around power chords. And there's a big one, a couple big ones. Okay. First of all, there's a myth that the reason that we play power chords is because we're too lazy to play thirds and learn music theory. Some people think that we're just, a power chord is a indeterminate dyad. It's indeterminate because it doesn't have a third, and it's a dyad because it's two notes. And people think that we're omitting the thirds just so we can play whatever, and anything's going to go because there's no third there to determine whether it's major or minor. And that's not true. Because context is going to determine whether that dyad sounds major or minor. If I play a 1-4-5-4 progression, which is a major progression, all major chords, and I play it with fifths with no thirds, they're going to sound like this. You're going to hear it, and you're going to hear it, and you're going to hear your brain's going to perceive thirds. You're going to hear a major chord progression, even though I'm only playing fifths. So here we go. And you hear it. Those sound like happy chords. They do not. They don't sound ambiguous at all. They don't sound indeterminate at all once a musical context is provided. So now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to do it in a minor progression. And it's going to be like a minor 1 2 3 2. All right. So those sounded dark. They sounded minor. And that's without thirds. So that's been debunked. We're not losing. They can't maintain their indeterminate quality once a musical context is provided, because your brain, if it's expecting to hear a major or a minor, you're going to hear a major or minor there, whether the third's there or not. Your brain's going to fill in the gaps. That's just how it is. There's probably some instances where it doesn't, where there's some chord progressions that are so unfamiliar that your brain's gonna have problems filling in the gaps. But then the bass line or the solo or the vocals or something is gonna fill the rest of it in for you. So that's not why we're doing it. We don't need the thirds there. You don't need the thirds because it's still gonna sound interesting based on the rest of the composition. Now, the next myth is that you can add the thirds back in when you're playing through a high gain amp. And that's the other thing. You can do it, but here's the reason why we have power chords to begin with. When you're playing through a high gain amp, you have something called intermodulation distortion. Intermodulation distortion, okay? If I'm playing single notes through a high gain amp, no problem. They're going to sound fine. But once I start playing more than one note at a time, there's going to be an interplay between those frequencies, and I'm going to get frequencies that are a product. It's going to produce partials that are the sum of the frequencies of the two fundamentals and the difference of the frequencies of the fundamentals. And one of those, and I think I'm explaining this right, so it's going to be mostly right. But so if I play a perfect fifth, a root and a perfect fifth, one of the partials that's created is an octave below the root, and it reinforces that fundamental, and it also gives the chord. It sounds like you're getting a bassy note underneath. So if I play it, and I'm going to move it up here to an E chord here, and I'm going to play a perfect fifth, and it's going to hear that. Listen for that, because that's going to be muted. I'm not playing it at all. It's muted, and I'm just going to play the power chord. And you can hear that low note coming out. That's not being played. That's not being produced by my guitar. That's actually being produced inside the amp. It's not being produced by the speakers or anything like that. It's being produced inside the amp, and it gives you that extra tone, which is why we use power chords. That's why we call them power chords, because they have power that you don't get. You don't get that in a clean setting. You can't hear it on a clean setting. If I turn the distortion off, I got a couple filters on over here. But if I turn the distortion off and do it, that extra note is not there. So when I put the distortion on, that's why power chords sound the way they do, because of this extra note that's being produced. Now, this is why, the other reason, besides the extra power that we get, that's the reason we omit the thirds. If you play a root and a third, okay, it's going to produce a partial that is inharmonic, okay, which means a non-integer partial. It's out of tune. Not only is that out of tune with the chord, but it's actually out of tune with the whole chromatic scale. It's completely out of tune. It's like playing a note with your whammy bar partially depressed. Just get this off note, right? So I'm gonna play first I'm gonna play a perfect fifth, and then I'm gonna play a major third, and then a minor third, and then a perfect fifth again, so you guys can hear how they sound. So, perfect fifth. Sounds good. Major third. Sounds off. A little warble to it. Minor third. It sounds really off. And then back to a perfect fifth again. Clean and powerful. That right there is why we do not play thirds with power chords. Why we do not play thirds in heavy distortion. Because the noise that's produced, no, it's noise. It's the inharmonic partials are perceived as noise, and it makes your chords sound muddy. It makes it sound indistinct and noisy. And you heard how bad those sound. There's actually a way to make that worse, and that's to add a fifth in. So when you play a root and a third is a major third interval, and a root and a minor third is a minor third interval. Well, the interval between the third and the fifth is a minor third, and the interval between the minor third and the fifth is a major third. So you're either going to end up with a minor third and a fifth, a minor third and a major third interval, or a major third and a minor third interval when you add that fifth in. So you end up with chords like this. Sound muddy and indistinct versus that same chromatic progression with just power chords. They sound clean and powerful. So we've debunked the myth that you even need minor thirds whenever you're playing a progression with power chords, and I've also demonstrated to you why these thirds sound terrible through heavy distortion, and it just has to do. It's just the physics of the sound wave going through the distortion of the amp. It doesn't. If you do want to play thirds, if you gotta say you're composing a song with your band, you got a second guitarist. One of you can play the root, and the other guy can play the thirds. It's not, as long as you got to come out of separate amps, it's fine. Or if you're recording, if you want to play one track and play your roots, and then go back and add your thirds on another track, it's going to sound fine. I think Eddie Van Halen, he detuned a little bit, detuned his B string, and that allowed him to add thirds in. But if you're just if you're just playing straight and you add thirds, it's just gonna make your chords sound bad. It just makes them sound bad, and nobody should be teaching this to young guitarists. That it's like hey, just add a third and it makes it sound. No, yeah, if you're not playing distorted, add thirds. Definitely learn your theory. Figure out, what your chords are supposed to be major, what chords are supposed to be minor, and play them that way. But once you're in distortion, just stick with the power chords, and it's going to sound a lot tighter, and people aren't going to hate you. There you go. So anyhow, hey, speaking of hate, if you guys got some shade, cast it in the comments, and give me a like and a subscribe, because I'm new and I need your help to help me to grow this channel together. So, see you guys next time.